And now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce a longtime friend and leader for our region, Congressman Dan Newhouse, who represents Washington's 4th Congressional District. He is a longtime advocate for Central Washington and for our state, previously serving in the State House of Representatives and as Director of the State Department of Agriculture. Dan is a third-generation farmer and business leader and brings a deep-rooted, first-hand understanding of our area's priorities and issues to Congress. And he does so very effectively through his service on the House Committees on Appropriation, Agriculture Committee, and the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party. And Dan also serves on the appropriation subcommittees for energy and water, agriculture, and homeland security, all of which are very important to our region. These are important assignments that reflect both his influence and the respect he commands from his colleagues and from House leadership. Congressman Newhouse's strong support for our community is consistently evident in the work he does on our behalf to address all critical challenges affecting our community. He supports the growth of our future workforce. He's a champion for key funding that enables PNNL research, Hanford's cleanup mission, and our agriculture, among other things. And his advocacy and hard work not only contribute to our community, but also to our nation's economic prosperity and security. It's an honor to have him with us today. Please join me in a warm welcome for Congressman Dan Newhouse.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jamie, for that fine introduction. Appreciate that. I'm always excited to hear updates about the lab. You guys all know about the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, but I bet you if you went anywhere in downtown Tri-Cities, Sunnyside, Yakima, you name the town in the state, and asked them what happens out at the lab, a lot of people maybe wouldn't know. I think it's one of the best kept secrets in town, unfortunately. We truly, in the PNNL, I think it's out of the 17 national laboratories, have one of the most significant, important labs in the country. They do things there that impact our life, every single one of us. And so just very proud to represent them and the fine people that work there. And we're trying to, as our darndest, to make sure that they continue to have the funding necessary to keep moving forward. Let me just say it's a pleasure to be with you today. It really is. I look forward to this event every year, actually. It's a good opportunity to meet a lot of people I don't see regularly, so it's good to catch up with some friends and folks in the area. But it's also, this is, as you see it build, this is an opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on in Washington, D.C., and some of the things that are important to our community. I gotta say, this is kind of you probably didn't realize I had such a large fan club, did you? Right? And I appreciate very much, this is, to see the folks outside and the friends we have in the room here, just reminds me how great of a country we live in, actually. That we feel free to express our opinions. That's what makes our country great. And so, it's great that people are so interested in the issues of the day, that they want to come out and show that interest and speak, to you guys. That's not just for me, that's for you too, to understand some of the issues and how they impact people and how they feel about them. So I welcome them, and I welcome all our friends in the room here as well. So this is August 27th, 2025. We've been, the new Congress has been in office now for 7.5 months. What can I say about what's happening in Washington, D.C.? It's been pretty boring, not much going on. Have to look for things to do. That's being very facetious. This is as you know, the second term of President Trump. And I guess I could say, unlike the first term, the president and his team have come in ready and anxious to get to work and get some things done. And it's been almost a whiplash time in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure around the rest of the country, because every single day there's something that comes out of the White House. And that's not really an exaggeration, wouldn't you agree? almost every single day. A new executive order, a new something about something. And that's hard to keep up. I appreciate you folks trying to keep up with it, but let me be honest with you. It's hard for members of Congress to keep up with it too. It really is. They don't consult the House of Representatives before they come out with an edict of some kind or an opinion, probably for good reason, but they just don't let us know ahead of time before they do things. So we have to respond and react if necessary, and learn just like the rest of us. So it has been a very busy year. It really has, and a lot of good things. A lot of good things are happening in our country. A lot of things that are happening that I think are working toward the betterment of our country on into the future. You know, we've got some huge challenges. I don't have to point them out to you folks in the room. You know some of the challenges that we have. You know, I'm a farmer. In fact, I should say, I was going to start out with, this is a very busy time on the farm too. We just started picking hops at home on Monday. So you're keeping me from the hop kill today, right? I got to go back at some point today. But you notice on the highways, all the apple trucks, the potato trucks, the wheat trucks. I saw a carrot truck this morning. All kinds of things happening on the farm. An important part of our economy in Central Washington, absolutely critical. Farming today is facing some of the most challenging times I've ever seen. It really is. There's a lot of potential, but it's tough to make a profit on the farm. Cost of inputs is up. The prices that farmers are getting for the things that they produce is down, if we can find a market at all. So there's a lot of challenges there. But I'll get into some of those things later. What I want to, it's interesting. I never thought I would see this, but I can't take responsibility for this. I would not have named it this, but there's one piece of legislation that has probably occupied as much people's attention as anything over the last six or 7 months. And you know it, H.R. 1, the one big beautiful bill. Like I said, I would not have named it that. I think that's a silly name, but it is it's a law now, it's been passed into law, covers so many different things, so many different topics of issues that are important in one piece of legislation. Covers everything from energy to agriculture to healthcare to national defense to the border, just everything you can imagine. Everything under the sun is in this one big beautiful bill. And like all legislation, I got to admit to you, I've never seen anything come across the desks of Congress that's perfect. There's a lot of good stuff, and don't get me wrong, there's a ton of good stuff that I think that we should be very, very happy that's going to be coming into effect here very soon, with tax cuts. This H.R. 1 prevented the largest tax increase in our country's history from occurring. So that's something that is going to help every single household in the United States. It truly will. It will allow people to keep more money in their pockets that they otherwise would be sending to Washington, D.C. So that's huge. It did a lot of things that will help the business climate. And this is a chamber banquet, a chamber luncheon. You should know that this legislation is going to help small businesses, including farmers. Agriculture is going to be a benefit of many of the changes that have made to the tax code. Things like we call it the death tax on farms, the estate tax, allowing businesses to write off quicker, more expenses when it comes to expansion, buying new equipment, different things. It's going to allow small businesses to grow and to hire more people, which is definitely a plus in today's economy, something that we have to continue to do. But there's so many other things that this bill will do too. One of the things, Jamie mentioned the work at the lab. There's other things going on out in the Richland area. I was able to secure in the H.R. 1 some of the tax credits and treatments for nuclear energy that are going to be key to the future of our nuclear energy, not only in the Tri-Cities area, but throughout the country. And let me tell you, that was and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I was able to bring together a small group of people that this issue is important with, and literally take these tax credits that were targeted for the nuclear industry off the cutting room floor and put them back in the bill. Otherwise, they would have received the same treatment as a lot of the other alternative energy projects that we're bound to. So that's going to, I believe, allow our area to truly emerge as one of the leading points for the nuclear industry for the entire nation. Not only will we have one of the first small modular reactors in the country, I'm confident of that, but we will be a center for the technology, the construction, all of the things that have to happen so other parts of the country can benefit from this new nuclear energy that we so desperately need. So I'm very happy about that and very proud of the fact that we were able to pull that together. Speaking of energy, it does other things that will be helpful to allow us to become energy dominant again in this country, which is key. You know, I've been driving around the district a lot lately, putting a lot of miles on my poor little Chevy Colorado. Every time I fill up the tank, and I've maybe been listening to some of the local radio stations just report on how gas prices are lower across the country than they have been in years. I think the average is like $3.15 a gallon. And I just filled up, it's diesel, so I just filled up my pickup for over $5 a gallon. I said, what the heck is going on here? Well, that's what we have the benefit of living in a beautiful state with some of the things that are challenges here in our state. But the cost of energy is truly one of those factors that makes it so difficult for businesses to be profitable. Agriculture particularly. It takes energy to move the wheels of business. It really does. So I think that's one of the things that, as a state, another issue off the federal plate, but something that we need to continue to pay attention to. As others are celebrating low gas prices, we are not. We are not. I just had last week the chairman of the Agriculture Committee in the Tri-Cities, G.T. Thompson, the chairman of the House Ag Committee, which to me is the most important committee on Capitol Hill, maybe second to Appropriations, Jamie. Helping him understand some of the challenges that we face in our industry. We got together a good group of growers who met at the experiment station down in Prosser, showed him around some of the different agricultural operations in the area. Very important for him to see firsthand some of the challenges that we have. And he explained to the group of people that we met with in several other places the importance of passing H.R. 1 because, like I said, it had 3/4 of the Farm Bill included in it. Things that we've not been able to get done over the Farm Bill is like 2 years overdue. And because of the challenges in the agricultural space, agriculture needs a modern Farm Bill. The one we are currently working under was really put together in about 2017. And so it really has not kept up to date. So it's good to have him see some of the challenges that we face so we make sure that we meet those challenges. One of the things, and this is an issue that I've been working on for a long time, and it touches a lot of different areas that you guys have been seeing in the news, but that has to do with agricultural labor. And that touches another thing that's been very important that was addressed in H.R. 1, border security, something that was truly in a crisis situation. We had thousands of people coming across the southern and some coming across the northern borders as well. That's basically come to a standstill. Instead of thousands, it's now maybe dozens, if that, on a daily basis that are coming in. So that, the determination of this administration, and I like to give them credit where credit is due, absolutely, to be able to get a handle on our borders so we know who's coming into our country. People, we need immigration. Let me put that on the table right now. We need to have people come into our country, but I think every single American wants to know that who's coming and why they're coming. We want them to come in legally. And that's been the basis of what I've been trying to do, and having G.T. Thompson come out here, who actually put together a working group last year to try to bring together some of the best ideas on how we can fix the agricultural visa program. And some of you will be shocked at me saying this, but I think in the Trump administration, even with all the things that are happening with deportations and people wanting to crack down on people coming into this country, we will have the best chance to fix agricultural visa programs that we've had in a long, long time. People understand we need workers to come into our country, not just for farms, but for almost every single part of our economy that is out there. So I'm excited about that opportunity, that work that we have in front of us. We're going to get busy on that for sure. Probably, I don't know if you call this the elephant in the room or not, but I would guess that one of the reasons our friends are outside and standing in the rain with their posters is because of some of the changes that we've made to Medicaid. Trying to reform a very important part of federal programs that people rely on, that people need. Certain segments of our population depend on Medicaid. And you know, I'm one of you. People don't like change. People are very want to change. And there's been a tremendous amount of talk and information being put out about what we've done through H.R. 1 to Medicaid. There's going to be some changes. There absolutely will, because without recognizing that changes have to be made, the program itself is at risk of failure. We just cannot continue to spend the kind of money that's been spent on Medicaid on into the future. It's going to collapse under its own weight if we don't take action. So we're trying to make the program as efficient as possible. Number one, and this has been my huge priority, is make sure every single person that qualifies for Medicaid can continue to receive the benefits of that program. That has to be a priority. There's parts, I think I have, out of the Republican conference, which is about 219 people, I think I have it's about the 5th largest number of Medicaid recipients in the entire country. About 40% of my constituents utilize Medicaid. So this is important to me. Number one district is Central California, my friend David Valadeo. His constituents, 70% of the people there depend on Medicaid. So this is not something that we're cavalier about. We're just trying to throw people off the system. We're trying to make sure the system stays in place for folks that truly need it. In our valley, in Central Washington, this is a huge thing. A lot of our rural community medical providers depend on customers that come in that are covered by Medicaid. So this is very, very important. It's important for us to make sure the system can be strong. So some of the changes that were made to that program are to help it continue to be strong into the future. One of them is work requirements. For single, able-bodied adults without kids, there's now work requirements, or I call it more community engagement requirements, where you can either apply for a job, work 20 hours a week, you can volunteer at any particular place in your community that needs volunteer work, or you can work toward getting an education so you can be employable. Trying to get people into the workforce, getting them engaged in the community, instead of them taking the spot of someone who can't do that needs that Medicaid dollar spent on them instead of on somebody that's able-bodied. So that kind of encouragement, I think, will be positive. You know, people in this country, we respect and revere the work ethic. We want to encourage people to be productive. We need them to be productive in our communities, and instead of being reliant on the government. And so I think this is, in the long run, going to be a positive thing. And that's just one of the tenets that's been somewhat, people are saying we're going to be throwing people off the program. That's not true. That is not true. Much of the information that's been put out there about that in particular is just false. I listened, and I'm sure all of you stay glued to C-SPAN during legislative or congressional sessions. The minority leader of the Democrats we have something during debate called the magic minute. Most of us, rank and file, we get a minute to speak on something. The majority leader, the speaker, a couple of the leadership get what's called a magic minute, which his magic minute turned into, I think, 8.75 hours, something like that. Throughout that speech, I'm sorry, losing my voice. Throughout that speech, he gave example after example after example of people that were going to be without medical coverage because of Republicans, what we were doing. And this story is being told throughout the country by a lot of people, even in our state. And I listened to what he had to say. And every single example that he used, those people will still be covered. They will not have their medical services taken away from them. So that's the kind of thing that, you'd be surprised at this. In a lot of things that we do in Congress, politics enters into the picture, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in some respects that people are being scared and then used. If they're scared enough, they're going to vote the other way next November, perhaps. And that's unfortunately what's driving a lot of what you hear in the news and what people are saying. So that's kind of the seamy side of politics, and it's one of the parts that I don't necessarily. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. That I don't necessarily enjoy, but that's the way it is. That's reality, and so we deal with that. Excuse me. A lot of things, other things are going on as well. If I could just speak for a minute, I mentioned our energy system here. In the last administration, there were a lot of efforts made to work towards breaching the Snake River dams. A lot of things were being done that truly left out many important players that should be a part of that discussion. This administration has taken a different turn there to stop that process, to protect the dams, because we need them. We need to have that hydroelectric energy. We need to have that baseload carbon-free power on into the future. And so I'm very happy about that. Like I said, give credit where credit is due. The Trump administration has done the right thing there, and they've listened to people in the Pacific Northwest on how important the hydroelectric system is to our communities. That does not let us off the hook as far as it relates to salmon. We still have to work as hard as we can to make sure salmon can not just survive, but they have to thrive. And those are easy words to say, but that's expensive stuff to carry out, as you know. But I want to tell you, we're seeing tremendous success. Numbers are improving on salmon returns. And so I'm very happy about that. I'm very confident in when I say this, that dams and salmon can and do coexist. And we have to make sure that that stays true every single day. As I told you, I was in Quincy and Moses Lake. They're looking at power shortages right now. Some of these server farms and AI that are coming in, they've been kind of a hub for some of those installations. They need more power for that and for other things, just like processing plants and other things like that. They don't have enough. It makes zero sense to me for us to be removing a clean source of renewable power like hydro. But that's my soapbox there. You know where I stand on the dams. I think we need to do everything we can to protect them. Another thing that's going on, I was just delighted to be able to announce this a couple weeks ago, that the Veterans Affairs Committee announced that an investment will be made in the Tri-Cities of $48 million to build a veterans clinic right here, a much needed veterans clinic in the Tri-Cities. And I think, although I think it could grow, I think the number of veterans that's going to impact in this area is something like 16,000. Which is going to be a huge, huge benefit to make sure that those people, those individuals that served our country, that wore our country's uniform, that we take care of them when they need us. And so I'm very, very happy about that particular development. Lots of other things going on too. One of the things I'm truly focused on a lot, because when I was director of agriculture, I learned and knew very well that the state of Washington is the most trade-dependent state in the nation. We're the closest to the Pacific Rim of the lower 48. A lot of the things that we produce here, from apples to airplanes and everything in between, is exported. We need to have good trade deals in place. So you can imagine in an area, and frankly, there was a ton of support here in Central Washington for President Trump and his reelection. And there still is. But my farmer friends are getting very concerned about their ability to export. They need to have access to foreign markets. There's only so many apples we can eat. I would admonish every single one of you to eat more apples, okay? And then being a hop farmer, I guess I can say, drink more beer. Can we do that? Or eat more cherries and all those things, right? We have to do our part as well. But trade deals are key. They truly are. There's some good news coming out about some of those. Some I just saw today between Canada and the United States, which is a good development. But South Korea and Japan, and we got to keep Mexico. They're a huge, huge trading partner. I'm hopeful that the United States and China can regain an economic relationship that is so important to our country overall, not just the agricultural community. But this is, as you know, a focus of the president. He likes to deal with every single country individually instead of multilateral kind of trade deals. He wants to just be one to one, which is fine, I guess, but it takes time, right? And we need these things soon. So one of my priorities has been to make sure that the things that are important to Central Washington are front and center on the president's list of priorities. And fortunately, so far, that's been the case. And he loves our nation's farmers, and I keep driving that as hard as I can to make sure that continues to be the case. So what else can I tell you about what's going on in Congress? I'll fly out of the Pasco Airport next Tuesday morning at 5 o'clock, headed to DC. That'll be September 2nd. The end of the fiscal year is September 30. We have about half of our appropriation bills passed off the floor of the House. The Senate has got 4 or 5. I'm not sure how many they've passed off there through the Senate chamber. So in congressional time, a month is not much. We've got a lot of work to do before we pass appropriation bills and get them signed into law. So my guess is that there's going to be a continuing resolution that will have to pass. The only other alternative, and I think this is a terrible, terrible option, is closing down the government. Nobody wins at that. In fact, it costs the government money when we do that. And so many things stop if that happens. And we've got enough disruption already throughout the federal government without that happening. So I think a CR is probably what's going to happen for some point of time, maybe to the end of the year. And then my hope is then that we'll be able to come together as Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate, and agree on those appropriation numbers that work for the American people. There's some of the challenges that we face in Congress. There's a lot, but one of the biggest ones hanging over everybody's head is the $37+ trillion debt that we face, which we spend about $2 trillion a year more than we take in. That's unsustainable, folks. It truly is. So we're trying to bend that spending curve. We're trying to get a handle on this debt so that we don't leave our kids and our grandkids, you've heard that before, with that kind of a legacy. That's just so unfair to the next generations. So I know it's been kind of clumsy and awkward and sometimes seems confused, and it has been, but all of the efforts that you've seen through the administration are working towards getting a handle on our federal spending. You can say a lot of things about President Trump, and a lot of things have been said. But one word I think describes him very well. He's a disruptor. He breaks things, and it's left up to the rest of us to try to put things back together in a way that works. And that's been hard, let me tell you. It's been very difficult. Some of the uncertainty that it's caused throughout every single federal agency, every community in the country, everybody that has something to do with the federal government, it's been difficult. It truly has. And so that's why these kind of meetings are very important to me, to be able to hear from you, but not just beyond this hour that we spend together. I need to hear from you on a regular basis as far as the impacts of what we're doing, whether it's good or bad, or if you have some ideas on how it could be done better. That's valuable to me so that I can impact some of the decisions that are being made in Washington, D.C. But just know that everything that my priority is to do what's best for my district, for my state, for my country. We'll continue to do that as hard as it gets, and no matter how many people disagree with me, every single vote you take, you're gonna upset somebody. I understand that. But just know that I'm trying to do the best I can with the information I have for the people that I represent, and I will continue to do that. And with that, I could go on and on about some of the things that we are doing, but Lori, I think there's some time for some questions, is there? Yeah, so shall we do that? What steps will you take to ensure that Congress remains a strong check on presidential power? Wow, several things come to mind. Like I said, this president is a disruptor, right? And he's pushing the envelope on so many different things. He truly is. I think he likes to see how far he can go before he gets, pushed back. The court system has been key here in making sure that the laws are upheld. And I think we're still going to continue to see more of that happening as we move forward. In fact, just that he's trying to get rid of one of the members of the Federal Reserve, right? I'm not sure I haven't been listening to the radio this morning, but he may find that that's a step beyond his presidential power. And I'm okay with that. That needs to happen. I have taken, my voting record. I'm not afraid to stand up to President Trump when I think he's wrong. And I'll continue to do that. I've also just recently, like I mentioned, these trade deals are important to the United States. Trade is so important to many things in the state of Washington. I think Congress needs to have a bigger say in putting those trade deals together. We need to have some ability to say yes or no on trade deals. And so I signed on to legislation that would make that happen. But just, what are we, 7 months into his administration, 3+ years to go? I would say continue to expect the president to push that envelope. But our forefathers put in place a system to make sure that there's a separation of powers between the three branches of government. I'm an institutionalist. I'm a Republican. I want to support a Republican president, but I'm an institutionalist too. I think that our system of government, we have to work to make sure we can keep it. And this is one of the places where it gets tested. And so I know that there's a lot of my colleagues that are willing to give the president as much power as possible. I try to remind them that maybe in 3 years, who knows, there could be a switch in who controls the White House, right? Whatever you're giving this president, you're giving the next president too. So just be careful how you approach this. And we have to make sure that balance of power remains. Congress, I don't know if it's because of laziness over the years or what, but Congress has given up a lot of Article I power, the most important branch of the government, because it's Article I, right? We can claim that. Has given up a lot of authority to the executive branch or to the judicial branch. And I think that's something that we've got to guard closely. One of the things is, I'm sorry I'm taking too long to answer this, Laura, but they used to be called earmarks. We don't use that term anymore, but congressional directed spending, community projects, that is an Article I responsibility. Congress should determine where that money is spent. You know what's happened over the years? I guess maybe maybe it looks bad. Maybe the optics are bad or something. Congress has given that up to the administration. We'll let those unelected bureaucrats decide where some of this money should be spent in our communities. Well, I joined a lot of my colleagues in saying, that's BS. This is our job. Somebody that's never been to Richland, Washington is making decisions on our behalf? No, that doesn't fly with me. So that's just one of the examples that we need to continue, making sure that we maintain our powers. How do you view the role of the federal government and military when it comes to balancing public safety with the rights of peaceful protesters and civilians? What steps do you believe Congress should take to ensure that civil liberties are protected while also maintaining order? Well, I would say today our friends outside are very peaceful, and they're expressing their First Amendment rights, and that's cool. I'm good with that. But for instance, if you, as you drove into the parking lot, were having bricks thrown at your car, or if I was, or things like that happening, that crosses the line, and that's where we need to make sure that people are not taking your rights away while they're trying to express what's important to them. So that's where I would say that the role of the government comes into play to draw that distinction. For some reason, what comes to mind, you probably heard the president has put the National Guard on patrol in Washington, D.C., right? To help make our federal city better, safer. My first thought of that, I thought, that's interesting. Nobody's done that before. Here we are, that disruptor again. Should he actually do that? Washington, D.C. is a federal city. They've had self-rule since 1973 only, but the federal government still has a lot of say in what happens in D.C. I think he's within his constitutional rights to put the National Guard on the streets of D.C. And so, frankly, as someone who, I won't say I moved there, but I live there on a temporary basis, I support that. I can tell you from personal experience, I don't ride the metro after 9 p.m. No way. Twice, I've walked out of the front door of where I stay in D.C. at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and heard gunshots half a block away. Quietly walk back into the house and wait. Many times I've fallen asleep to the sound of gunshots. I think it was a good thing on the part of the safety of the citizens of Washington, D.C. and visitors to take that action. Now, if he says, Chicago, we're coming for you next, that's different. That's different. I think he should probably wait for an invitation, work it out with the local officials, the mayor, the governor, whoever, before other cities are subject to that. But look at the crime rate in D.C. in the last 2 weeks. It seems to be better. But the federal government, we've got to be careful how far we go in enforcing using militia and all that kind of thing. Kind of a fine line there. But for D.C., I'm supportive of that measure. Okay, permitting reform. It's been a top priority for businesses across the country as outdated processes delay critical projects in infrastructure, energy, and broadband. What role do you see Congress playing in advancing meaningful permitting reform? What specific steps are you supporting to ensure communities like ours can build smarter, faster, and more sustainably? This is something, permitting reform, regulatory reform, but permits. Did you know we could do so much more in our country if we could just get a permit to build whatever it is, a pipeline, a transmission line. There's so many different things that get stopped by well-meaning people, but the process can take up to 20 years to do something. And we don't have 20 years to wait in our competition with the other countries, certainly with China. We've got to be able to build things faster. Or companies, utilities have to get an answer faster, whether it's yes or no. They have to know. It can't be drug out for so long. This is something that I'm part of oh gosh, there's so many caucuses. I think it's Build America Caucus or something like that. The name doesn't matter, but the objective, and I was approached by a Democrat to join this caucus. It's a bipartisan issue that we can come together and figure out ways to reduce the amount of red tape that it takes to build something in our country. We just have to do that. And whether you're trying to get power to a community or trying to get gas somewhere, or there's so many different things that are, the whole permitting process here in the state of Washington is a huge problem as well. And we just have to fix that in order to stay competitive, to grow. Our communities are growing as fast as they are. We have to continue to do everything we can. Immigration and labor are often tied directly to agriculture. I'm sorry, I have to read this. And other industries in our area, what steps do you believe Congress should take to ensure businesses have access to workers they need while addressing border security concerns? So I talked about this a little bit in my remarks. This has been one of my priorities in the time I've been in Congress. We need immigration for our country to thrive. We truly do. Just specifically on farms, for instance, we don't have enough of a local workforce. We truly don't. We need to have these folks that want to come in from Mexico or wherever they come from, this part of the country, particularly Mexico, to do the hard work that Americans won't do. They're essential. And so the steps that we take to allow that to happen, this is not rocket science. It's not something the lab should have to work on to make happen. We're just trying to allow people to come across the border, work, and then go home when they want to. Easy stuff. Over the last decade, that's been really difficult to accomplish. And you know why the biggest reason I've been told by my colleagues why we can't do that? Because of the crisis at the southern border. The amount of drugs, the human trafficking, the number of people coming across the border had just taken away any incentive for a member of Congress to vote yes on something that will allow more people to come in. Thanks to the president, we have solved that problem. The crisis at the border is over. And that there's a lot of things in H.R. 1 that go toward that to make sure that that continues. So that's some of the things that I think have to absolutely do in order to solve these problems. Our business climate, our businesses depend on immigration. They really do. The growth of our country does. So, I don't have to read that to you. Well, thank you very much. I've probably gone on longer than I should, but I do appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys and visit with you. And I meant what I said, too. It can be done a little more constructively to get a message to me, but please continue to reach out. Ashley's here with my staff. Vicki was here. Dallas is here. Emily's here. Please stay in touch with me so that I know what your challenges are, what you're facing, so that I can better represent you in Washington, D.C. That's a key part of a representative form of government. And you guys have been great. You really have, but just keep it up. I appreciate it. And thank you very much. I appreciate the chamber and everything that you do. And, I wanted to share something. I haven't gotten far enough to really speak a lot about it. I was given a book about Sam Volpentest recently, Community Godfather or something like that. And from what little I've read so far, he has truly set a standard for all of us as community leaders to meet and to match as we work together to build our community. So I just wanted to invoke his name, that let's do as best job we can to keep Sam's legacy alive. So thank you very much, Lori. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Bye-bye.